My wife had not kissed me in 6 months. She had not said she loved me in over a year. My daughters, who had every advantage I could give them, phones, cars, tutoring, sports, and every birthday treated like an event, sat on those phones on my birthday and said nothing. Not a text. Not a card. Not a word. For Father's Day, they took themselves to a spa and ate dinner at my favorite restaurant without me. When they came home and I asked how their day was, nobody mentioned what day it was. Nobody mentioned it at all. I left the house at midnight with nowhere to go and my first drink in 15 years in my hand. I sat in a parking lot and asked myself how a man becomes invisible inside his own home. Then I asked myself what would happen if I simply stopped being there to be ignored. What followed changed my family in ways I could not have predicted. And the version of me that exists now is someone I spent 15 years not knowing I was becoming. Before we get into it, hit subscribe and drop your city in the comments. I read every single one. My name is Marcus. I am 43 years old. My wife, Diana, and I have been married for 15 years. We have 3 daughters, Savannah, who is 17, Reese, who is 14, and Emmy, who is 11. I built a career in construction project management, the kind of work that runs on early mornings and late calls and the particular exhaustion of being responsible for things that cannot be undone. I never missed a school event. I never prioritized work over a soccer game or a recital. I kept my hours deliberately manageable so I could be home for dinner. I believed, for a very long time, that being present was its own form of communication. Diana and I did not have a dramatic marriage. We did not scream at each other. We did not throw things. What we had was a long, quiet cooling, the kind where nothing breaks loudly, things just stop working. The affection drained out over years and I kept telling myself it would come back. That we were in a phase. That life with 3 kids and 2 careers was hard and we just needed to get through it and then reconnect. I told myself that for about 12 years longer than I should have. The small cruelties are the ones that accumulate without you noticing. If I paid a bill early, the response was a comment about control. If I asked about an unfamiliar charge, the response was a sigh that implied I had insulted her character. If I tried to plan something for us, it was dismissed. If I did not plan anything, I was passive. I learned that no version of my behavior was the right version, and eventually I stopped trying to find one. My daughters learned a version of me from Diana. Not through anything direct, she never sat them down and taught them to dismiss me. But children absorb the temperature of a house. They learn which parent receives respect and which one receives requests. I became the second category. I was the logistics parent. The payment method. The driver. The fixer of things. I was not the person anyone sought out for comfort or conversation or presence that mattered. I tried to address it. Multiple times, over multiple years, in multiple tones. I tried calm. I tried direct. I tried written letters because spoken conversations had a way of becoming about my tone rather than my point. The response was consistent. I was being dramatic. I was making things harder than they needed to be. I should just know they loved me without needing it demonstrated. I was turning every small thing into a courtroom. The words changed but the message did not. My need for basic acknowledgement was the problem, not the absence of it. Father's Day arrived. I woke up to an empty house. No note on the counter, nothing written on the calendar, no word from Diana the night before. I sent a text and received back, took the girls to a spa. Don't wait up. Then silence. Then dinner time, and they came home from my favorite restaurant where they had apparently eaten without a thought of extending the invitation. When I asked how their day was, nobody mentioned the date. I waited to see if someone would. Nobody did. 2 days later, my birthday. I suggested plans. Shot down. Suggested food. Shot down. Suggested a movie, something small. Everyone was busy. They sat with their phones in the same room I was standing in and I watched the evening pass like I had already left. That night, Diana rolled over in the dark and said, in the flat tone of someone reading a reminder off a list, that my birthday had been the other day and she guessed I was expecting sex. Something in me that had been holding for a long time stopped holding. I asked her questions I already knew the answers to. The last time we kissed. The last time we had been intimate. The last time she had said she loved me directly, to my face, without it being performed for an audience. She argued each date. I was wrong, she said, her memory was different. When the weight of the actual dates pushed through her resistance, she shifted. I was being unfair. I was making her feel attacked. How could I frame wanting any sign of love from the people in my house as something I deserved to ask for? I told her I was not an ATM. I was not a taxi. I was not a punching bag. And then I said the thing I had been carrying for a long time: if they wanted to act like I did not exist, I could make that easier for all of us. I left the house at midnight. I sat in the cab of my truck in a parking lot and made the worst decision I had made in 15 years, which was to start drinking. I have not had a drink since I was 28. That night I had several. I sat there in the dark doing the math on my own life and arriving at conclusions that felt logical in the way that conclusions feel logical when you are in pain and alone and have been invisible for too long. I thought they would be happier without me. I thought if I was truly the problem, removing me would solve things. I turned that idea over and over in a way that I need to be honest about, because it meant sitting alone in a parking lot at midnight convincing himself his family would do better without him is not in a safe place, even if he does not fully know it yet. What pulled me out of it, eventually, was Emmy. Not physically, she was not there. But I kept seeing her face. Emmy is 11 and she has always been the one who made me feel real. She would reach for my hand in a parking lot for no reason. She would come find me in the garage just to show me something she had drawn. She texted me pictures of dogs in tiny outfits because she knows it makes me laugh. In a house where I had become furniture to everyone else, Emmy had never treated me like furniture. She treats me like her dad. And I could not finish the thought I had started in that parking lot because finishing it meant not being there for her. I drove to a hotel. I texted Diana that I was fine and not coming home. Then I slept for 12 hours and woke up sober. Update 1. The morning after was the clearest my mind had felt in years, in the particular way that a fever breaks and suddenly you can think in straight lines again. I called the Employee Assistance Program through work and asked about therapy. A counselor named Dr. Reyes had an opening that Monday. I took it. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which was already more than I had experienced in a long time. When I finished, she said one sentence that I have thought about every day since: the goal is not to make them love you correctly. The goal is to understand why you stayed in a place that was making you disappear, and to build something different from here. She referred me to a divorce attorney, not because she was pushing me toward divorce, but because she said I needed to understand what that path looked like before I could make any real decision. I called the attorney's office on Tuesday. I did not retain him. I just talked. I needed to know the shape of the option. I needed it to exist as a real thing rather than an abstraction I kept refusing to look at. My daughters reached out after a few days. Not immediately, and the delay told me something real about what they had been told and how seriously anyone was taking the situation. Savannah texted first, careful and a little cold, the way teenagers text when they have been instructed to reach out rather than wanting to. Reese called and started crying almost immediately, which felt genuine. Emmy had apparently been the one pushing them all to reach out, according to what Reese told me on the phone. Emmy would not accept being told I needed space. She had a feeling something was wrong and she kept saying so until people listened. I told each of them I loved them. I told them I was fine, which was not entirely true yet but was becoming more true. I told them I needed some time and that me needing time was not about them. I missed some of their activities in those weeks and I could feel how much that registered in a way that my presence for 15 years apparently had not. When I was absent, it landed. When I was present, it was assumed. Diana reached out a few times. The first message was the one I have kept, the one that read, "I'm sorry for making you feel that way. We all love you and we are here when you want to come home." I sat with that message for a long time. I am sorry for making you feel that way is not the same as I am sorry for what I did. It is an apology for my perception rather than for her actions. I did not respond to it that night. Update 2. 3 weeks after the parking lot, I met with Diana in person. I asked to meet without the girls present. She brought them anyway. I said hello to them, told them I loved them, and then stood with Diana in a different room and said that this was still not the conversation I had asked for, that her bringing them was another example of my feelings being treated as secondary to what was easier for her. She looked at me differently than she had before. Something had shifted in her face. She started apologizing. I told her I heard her and I needed her to understand what I was actually saying. An apology I did not believe was not the same as an apology I had received. I told her the apologies felt constructed for an audience or for a result rather than from genuine recognition of what had happened over 15 years. She got quiet. That specific quality of quiet, not defensive, just absorbing, was something I had not seen from her before. I took out 2 folders. I placed them on the table between us. One was a separation agreement my attorney had provided as a document for me to understand, not a document I was serving her with that day. The other was a list of marriage counselors with specific notes on each, because I had done the research rather than making it her problem to solve. I told her she needed to look at both of them and tell me what she actually wanted, and that I needed that answer to be real rather than strategic. She looked at the folders for a long time. The girls came back in. Emmy climbed straight into my lap and held on. My youngest daughter, still small enough to fit in my arms, who had apparently been the one insisting this whole time that something was wrong and someone needed to find me. I held onto her and let myself feel exactly how much that mattered. I went home. I slept in a different room, which I had set up before I came back. This was not a punishment. It was a boundary. I needed a door I could close and know the space behind it was mine. Some things were already changing. Diana had started acknowledging the small things, a meal, the logistics I handled, the mortgage I had paid again without discussion. She said thank you for the first time in what felt like years, and she said it quietly, like she was not sure of the word. I noticed. I did not say anything yet. But I noticed. Update 3. I want to be honest about the darkest part of this, because I kept it from my therapist at first and I should not have. Those thoughts in the parking lot, the ones about my family being better off, the ones that felt like logic rather than pain, they were not the first time that kind of thinking had appeared. They were just the most serious version of something that had been building quietly for a while, the way a structural problem in a building develops behind the walls before anyone sees it in the surface. Dr. Reyes could tell I was holding something back. She told me once that the part of a story that a person keeps to themselves is usually the most important part. So I told her. The conversation that followed changed the tone of our sessions entirely. She helped me understand that what I had been experiencing was not just marital unhappiness. It was a long period of being denied the basic conditions that people need to remain well, and that my mind had started doing what minds do under those conditions, looking for exits from pain, constructing arguments for why my absence was the more charitable option. She helped me understand that those arguments felt rational because pain makes them feel rational, and that the feeling of logic is not the same as logic itself. What stopped me was not a plan or a decision. It was Emmy. My therapist said that holding onto the one real connection that remained was the thing that kept me grounded long enough to get somewhere safer, and that I should not minimize that or be embarrassed by it. I am not embarrassed by it. Emmy saved my life by being exactly who she has always been, a child who looks for her dad. Diana attended individual therapy starting the following month. I found out she had told her therapist something that she had not yet said to me directly, that she had known something was wrong with our marriage for years and had avoided addressing it because she was afraid that addressing it would mean losing it. That fear had caused her to withdraw rather than engage. She had mistaken her silence for stability. She had mistaken my patience for contentment. She had treated my reliability as a guarantee rather than a choice, and she had not understood until I was gone that reliability does not continue indefinitely without reciprocity. Our first couples therapy session was long and difficult. Our second was not much easier. The third session was the one that mattered. I had finally told my individual therapist the full story, everything, including what had gone through my mind in the parking lot, including the thought that my family would be better off. And in that third session, I told Diana. I watched her face understand what she had not understood before. She wept in a way that was different from the strategic tears I had become accustomed to reading. This was something else. She said she did not know it had gotten that far. She said she was horrified. She said she was sorry, not the performed version, not the version that was managing the situation. She said she had loved me and stopped showing it, and that she had never stopped to ask herself what that cost. I did not forgive everything in that room. Forgiveness is not a moment, it is a direction you slowly move in over time. But I heard her. And I believed her, for the first time in a long time, when she said she wanted to change. Update 4. That conversation was the pivot. Not an ending, not a beginning, but a genuine turn in the road. Diana scheduled her own appointments, kept them, and brought what came out of them back to our joint sessions without being asked. She stopped framing my needs as inconveniences. She started noticing the things I had always done and saying so, not as transactions, but as acknowledgments that I had been carrying things she had taken for granted. My daughters changed too, though more slowly, because teenagers change on their own schedule regardless of what adults decide. Savannah, who had always been the most distant, came to me one evening while I was doing something unremarkable in the kitchen and started talking, not about anything important, just about her day, her friends, a teacher she found exhausting. She did not look at her phone once. That conversation lasted 40 minutes and she initiated every part of it. I did not say anything about it afterward. I just filed it away as something real. Reese had always been more emotional than her older sister and she channeled that into a kind of active repair, leaving notes on my truck dashboard, texting me things she knew I liked, asking my opinion on decisions I had been quietly excluded from for years. She was doing the work in the particular way of a teenage girl who processes guilt through action, and I received it the same way. Emmy remained exactly who she had always been. She was the one constant. She is my person and she knows it and she has never made me feel like that was conditional. The guest room furniture I assembled in my personal darkness, a symbol of a boundary I had set in the worst week of my life, is still in that room, because the room has become something useful. My office. The space where I take early calls without waking anyone. The space where I have a door I can close when I need to think. It does not represent separation anymore. It represents the understanding that I am a person who needs a space of his own, and that needing that is not a flaw. Diana tried to initiate physical closeness on one of my first nights back. I said it was not the right moment, that we had things to work through before that meant what I needed it to mean. She understood. She did not push. That restraint, from a woman who had previously framed my emotional needs as demands, told me something about who she was becoming. The attorney's folder is still in my home office. I did not use it. I am not sure yet whether I will ever use it. What I know is that it exists, and that knowing it exists makes my presence here a choice rather than an obligation. I am not staying because I have no other option. I am staying because things are changing in ways I can observe with my own eyes, and I am choosing to stay long enough to see where those changes lead. I am in therapy. Diana is in therapy. We attend couples sessions twice a month. My daughters know, in a general sense, that their parents are doing work to make the family function better, and I have watched that knowledge change how they move through the house. Carefully at first, walking on eggshells, as I once described it, and now less carefully, because they are beginning to understand that I am not a switch that can be tripped without warning. I am a person who expressed what I needed, left when the need was not met, and returned on terms I had set for myself. My therapist told me once that I had spent so many years playing a character, the steady one, the reliable one, the one who holds the thing together without being seen, that I had lost track of who I was underneath the performance. She is helping me find that. It takes time. Some days the old patterns pull at me, the reflex to minimize my own needs, to smooth things over, to absorb more than my share to keep the temperature in the house manageable. I notice the reflex now. That is the first thing. Noticing it before it becomes an action. I do not know exactly what my life looks like in a year. I know what it feels like today. And today it feels like a life I am participating in rather than funding from a distance. Edit, for everyone asking about the parking lot, I am telling this part of the story because I think more people sit in parking lots at midnight than anyone talks about, and I think the silence around those moments costs something. If you are in that place, or someone who loves you is in that place, the number is 988. Call it or text it. I did not call it that night. I got lucky in a way I did not deserve. Please do not wait for luck. Edit 2, for the people asking whether I regret leaving the house at midnight the way I did, I regret the drink. I do not regret leaving. Some statements cannot be made in words because the words have been heard too many times and absorbed as background noise. Walking out the door at midnight was the first thing I had done in 15 years that could not be rescheduled, explained away, or assigned to my tone. It landed in a way that 15 years of conversations had not. Edit 3. For everyone who said I should have given my wife an ultimatum years earlier, maybe. But I think anyone who has lived inside a slow-cooling marriage knows how convincingly it tells you that the warmth is just around the corner. You keep adjusting to the temperature until you forget what warmth felt like. The conversations I had were real and I meant them, and they were dismissed. The difference was not the content of what I finally said. The difference was that I left before saying it. Edit 4. For the people asking about Emmy, she is doing fine. She has always been fine. She is 11 years old and she has more emotional intelligence than most adults I know. She does not fully understand what happened and she does not need to. She knows her dad came back and things feel different now, and she is satisfied with that in the uncomplicated way of a child who only ever needed the basic thing, which was for me to be there. I will be there.